So, all right, let's introduce you to the Scary Mysteries audience officially. All right, so I'm here with Brad Rego.
Really?
Rego?
Rego? No, you're right.
Right.
Jesus.
That's the first time I
It's so much less offensive if like you did if everyone thinks that we just met. That's way less offensive.
No.
Knowing that we've known each other for like 3 years.
Yeah. So that's bad. But to explain, so Brad and I know each other, but I've really never, like, we know each other through work mostly.
Right.
Not that we're friends. I mean, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Right. However, we don't really hang out outside of work. That's
right.
fair.
This is fair. Yeah, fair.
Which maybe that'll change in the future, right? But anyway, I just realized when I was saying his last name, I've never actually Brad Rego.
Rego, yeah. It's a common mistake, which is weird. My last name is seemingly simple.
It's Portuguese.
It is. Well, it's not even easy. It is. It's Portuguese.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
So
I was like.
Yeah, so like a lot of people, for whatever reason, like I always think I have a very easy last name, which is R-E-G-O, which to me, I look at that, I'm like, Re-go. Like that seems very easy, but like through my entire life, I've gotten a lot of Rego. Like, oh, Mr. Rego. Like, no, where do you get Rego from? But I guess it's been like that forever. And then I met someone, weirdly enough, I met someone with a last name of R-E-G-O who did pronounce it Rego. And I was like, well, then I'm an idiot.
Like Megan and Megan.
Yeah.
Megan.
Apparently, it had to do with, she told me this story. Apparently, it has to do with like class levels of the name.
Ooh.
Like at some point in history, there was a Rego that got like knighted or something, or became some sort of like upper class person, and so it added this little strange accent onto the E, which then changed it from Rego to Rego. And so I think it's like...
Wait, so Rego is better?
I think Rego is supposed to be...
Rego,
right. I think it's supposedly the Rego is that branch of the name is like the higher class one, and I am more of the guttural sort of...
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Sure.
Knowing you.
Yeah, of course.
I think I'm also self-conscious because the Scary Mysteries fans, that's the biggest thing I get, is my mispronunciation of things.
Okay.
They make me feel uneducated, and, you know, they're like literally, you know, 1 out of 5 is like, actually, it's pronounced Texarkana, or whatever, Texarkana.
Well, you are from Massachusetts.
So that's my excuse. Isn't that fair?
Right.
Like, my parents are Boston, East Boston, Dorchester, like, they got accents. Yeah. And I was raised by them.
Sure.
Outside of Boston. And so, I don't know. Like, you could say different words all over the place, right?
Right.
Plus, I don't know who's commenting. They could be from England or wherever.
Sure.
It's just sort of like we're all going to say different things, I think.
Yes, true. I mean, that...
Right?
That's true.
I mean, it's just going to sound different.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I mean, we come from an area, I'm also from Massachusetts, as you know.
Yeah.
But, like, we come from an area that tends to have this accent that is, I don't know, I would say it's like an uneducated accent.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And I love, and it's funny, I love the accent, sort of. Like, I love the accent more when I left Massachusetts than when I was there. Like, when I was there, I tried to get rid of it, and I mostly got rid of it. Yeah. But, like you look at, like, old, I don't know about you, but, like I look at, like, old videos or audio recordings of myself, and I had a really, really hard Boston accent. And But
you noticed it when you were there?
Well, you know what it was? I didn't notice it until, for a long time, I worked in the IT department, IT world, and so I did tech support, so phone stuff. And I was working for a company that we weren't allowed to say where we were located. So I had to say I was located either in Seattle or North Carolina. Those are the only 2 places I could say where we were from.
That's sketchy.
And so...
I mean, what?
Yeah. And so it was like, I had such a identifiable accent, like you think of like Good Will Hunting kind of shit.
Yeah.
And like people would immediately say like, oh, you must be from Boston, and I would have to lie and say, oh no, I'm in North Carolina, and like, you do not sound like you are from North Carolina, and I'd be like, oh, well, I moved down to North Carolina, and it was like a whole, all of a sudden, like I'm like making up a story about like, yeah, we had to pack up everything and move down here, and like it would just became like this whole off the rails situation, and so so eventually I got tired of that conversation, and so I had to make like a very concerted effort to lose the accent.
Interesting. Yeah. See, I didn't notice it when I was there.
Yeah.
As soon as I went to college, upstate New York, Ithaca, I just got railed on for saying wicked, and I was like, oh my God, I talk like... So I tried to lose it, and yeah, I don't know if it worked, but...
I mean, I'd say mostly. I feel like you're similar to me in that it's like 95% gone with just like certain words.
Yeah.
I know for me specifically, like the more excited I get, the less I think about it and the more it comes out. And so, but I will say, like when I left Massachusetts and I moved here, like I kind of missed it. Because like I got away from it so much, and it became like this identifiable thing with home. And so, I don't know, like I kind of missed it in a way, and I kind of like, there were some times where I was like, oh, I kind of wish I still had it, but now it's like I've like concentrated too much on losing it, so like it's tough to slide back into it if I had to. Like there are certain words I still find very difficult to say. Are there words that you find are difficult?
Not words, I don't know, No, I mean, I don't try that hard to, I just think I've sort of morphed into, like you said, it's for whatever reason, it's uneducated.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're an idiot.
Right.
And when I go back, and I don't like saying this, like I feel like I hear people that, you know, I go to Celtics games and stuff, and you hear people talking. Sure. And they're like, what's the accent? Fucking, I don't know, dude. Like, fucking wicked, dude.
What's up, kid?
Like, what's up, kid? This is fucking wicked retarded.
Yeah.
Like, literally sound like that. And you're like, this is how you talk? Like, holy shit. Yeah. Everyone sounds like a construction worker, basically.
Yeah. Everyone sounds blue collar, which is not, it's not a bad thing, but it's just, everyone does sound like
Why are we bashing our home? This is terrible.
I don't know.
Do we think we're cool New Yorkers?
No, I don't think so at all. Because I am so underneath like the cool New York.
This is bad.
Yeah. I love Boston. I love Massachusetts.
Oh, backtracking. and after all that, I love Massachusetts.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't have any family there anymore. Everyone's gone.
Where are they again?
Now they're in upstate New York. But like
deep upstate
New York. So like I go visit my parents and my aunt and uncle that's up there, and like they still have a crazy Boston accent. Yeah. Like they're like way off the charts. Like I hang out with them and I'm like, holy Christ, this is what I used to sound like. I remember this. I don't know. It's weird. I love Massachusetts, but that is it's like a weird love-hate relationship with that accent. Like I love it. I love having it because it's like identifiable to home, and it's like, oh, that's like a piece of where I grew up. But it's one of those things where like I don't like using it, or I don't like it when it comes out against the wrong people, because I feel like it makes me seem like an idiot, which is terrible.
No, listen, I get you, man. Like I said, in those comments, people are like kind of rough. But so Brad is a cinematographer, right? You're a director, editor, all these things, correct?
Correct.
Growing up in Massachusetts, right? Because I did too. Mm-hmm. We're both very much into horror movies.
Yes.
Huge horror fans, right?
Yep, absolutely.
What part of growing up in New England has affected you to like horror films? Have you ever thought about this? Like if you grew up in Iowa, or wherever, pick your choice, would you be the same? Because I feel like there are like woods in New England. There's also horror writers, right? There's other isn't there like a classic tradition of witches and weirdos coming out of New England? Correct?
I think so. Well, I think the setting does have a lot to do with it, right? Because first, I mean, with New England, you've got you've got like Massachusetts and you've got Connecticut and Rhode Island that are, you know, they're mostly developed, right? I mean, whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of woods in Connecticut. There's a lot of woods in forests in Massachusetts. And then of course you get to like Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, which is just like, you know, just tons of kind of that just wooded area, and that's kind of it with small towns. So like I think with like the seasons that we grow up with, and the fact that the kind of seclusion that New England kind of has. I mean, I know there is in New York, but like I go up to see my parents in upstate New York, and it's a lot of farmland up there. You know, I mean, there are certainly woods, but there are a lot of farmland too, whereas I feel like it's different. I grew up in East Taunton, which is like a fairly rural section of Taunton. And, you know, we grew up on 2 acres of land, and we were surrounded by woods. Like our house was set back from the road, and we were just surrounded by woods. And so I grew up going outside and just playing in the woods of just endless woods. And so I think kind of just being sequestered like that, with like the seasons and the winters the way they are, and like the fall and Halloween, and of course you got like the Salem mystique.
It's also like the shape of the trees and things, don't you think?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it's not like that. It's not like the Colorado trees,
right?
You know,
it's not like
that.
Yeah.
There is a different.
Seattle, Washington, it's all beautiful, big,
right.
Nice things. When you get into the fall and the trees are like dying and stuff, and you talk about Sleepy Hollow and things like that, I don't know, it's weird.
There is, yeah. I mean, listen, you got.
I mean, because I spent my time in the woods too, and
yeah.
I just wonder how much that like let your imagination go as a kid, and just I don't know. Like kind of, I don't know. I just always question basically why am I into horror films. I think a lot of people who are into that kind of stuff, into scary mysteries, are like, what is it? Like, if I grew up in an abusive home, would I be a murderer? Am I like, do I have that in my brain? But I grew up in an okay place, so I'm not going to kill people. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. Now, when you were growing up, did you watch a lot of horror movies? Did you watch a lot of scary movies?
Tons. Okay.
Like, at what point did you start, like, watching horror movies?
So I have, the first thing that like really messed me, I must have been 6 or 7.
Okay.
And I had these second cousins, and we would go over, and they were older. They were like 10, 11, whatever. They shouldn't have been watching this stuff either. Mm-hmm. But they were into it like crazy. They would put tissue paper under the sink and mm-hmm. roll it up into skeletons and make scenes kind of out of Goonies, where they're sitting around the treasure trove and they're all like morbid.
Oh, wow.
And then on the wall they had all these VHSs, and they were all horror movies. And anyway, they said, we're going to show you Jason's mask coming off. And I went down the stairs, you know, all the parents are upstairs doing whatever.
And how old were they? Were they older than you, or the same age?
No, older.
Okay.
One was like 2 years older, and one was 4 years older. Maybe I was 7. Anyway, I was just too young. I remember standing, so I go down the stairs, and I'm standing at the edge of the stairs, half ready to run up, just because I knew I should not be watching this.
Right.
Anyway, they showed me, what did it happen in part 3?
Yeah, I think it was part 3.
He takes the mask off. Anyway, they showed it to me, and it messed me up, but at the same time, I was like, I need more of that. And then from then on, I'd go into the mm-hmm. video store, and all I'd do is look at the horror stuff and try to convince my mom to get it for me. And then, I don't know. I watched Tales from the Crypt and just did whatever I could to get into horror. And that's it. Like, I was born with it.
I feel like everyone's had a pusher, right? Like maybe not. Maybe I'm just thinking like you had your cousins that were like, they were the pushers, right? They were just like, oh, we're gonna come there with me. We're gonna open you up to this world. And like I had the same thing. So when I was growing up, I could not see. I remember the 2 movies that really like screwed me up growing up was Cujo. It was weird. It was 2 Stephen King movies, right? So Cujo screwed me up, and Carrie. Remember Carrie?
That's yes.
I've watched that recently, and it's still kind of like unsettling.
Yep. Even just the way it's filmed, it's just
gritty.
Doesn't feel good.
It's gross. It's gross.
Yeah.
So
your pillows, your
dirty pillows.
Your dirty pillows.
Your
dirty pillows, and you're like, you're a Satan lady.
It was crazy. So those two movies like would scare me, and I wouldn't be able to sleep. I'd get nightmares, and I wouldn't be able to like.
Who showed
sleep.
you those?
Who
was your pusher? Who was your drug pusher?
That wasn't my pusher yet, right?
Oh, okay.
So like, that was just like as I was growing up.
How
like
old
I happened to see.
How old are we?
Oh God, I mean, I think probably like 6 or 7.
Just too young.
Yeah, like I happened to see Cujo at like my grandparents' house like during the day with like my mom and my brother and whatever. We just watched it, and then I just got like really scared later on. I couldn't sleep and whatever. And then I remember.
Wait, did you tell your folks?
Yeah, like I just.
You were like,
I was
messed
like
up.
visibly upset. Like I couldn't deal. And then I remember my dad. He used to go hunting, right? Well, he still goes hunting, but my dad was a big hunter, and so in the fall he would leave for like a week or so and go on like these hunting trips. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I was home with my brother and my mother, and my mom wanted to watch Carrie, and so. I mean, it hadn't been out that long, but it was around, and so like she watched it. I don't know if she rented it or whatever the hell she did with it, but we watched Carrie, and then I remember that like seriously screwed me up.
She watched it with you?
Yeah.
How
and
old?
Like I don't know how old. I was probably like somewhere in that area, like 6 or 7 or something.
What
maybe
a
8.
mom!
And so, well, here's the thing, right? So I watched that. And then that, of course, like screwed me up like forever. And then that was the line. That was like, you are not watching anything remotely scary for like the rest of your life.
You drew that line.
No, my parents drew that line. She was like, that's it. I let you watch that. That was a bad idea. We're not going to do that again. And so for like my entire childhood, like I wasn't allowed to watch scary movies because they would give me nightmares, and I wouldn't be able to go to sleep, and I would just have an overactive imagination. I would just think of weird stuff. And so I wasn't allowed to. And I remember there was like a time when Aliens had come out. I was over my grandparents' place, and my brother was big into this stuff. And so my grandfather had recorded Aliens off of like HBO or something and had a VHS tape for him of Aliens. But his caveat was he wasn't allowed to watch it until I went to sleep. And so he just sat there and just waited for me to go to sleep so that he would watch it.
That's good, Brad. Now go.
Yeah, like I wasn't, like it was just crazy because I had all sorts of. I remember the original Alien. I watched the first few minutes of the original Alien, and when the chest bursting scene happened, I lost my shit. Like I just absolutely lost my mind and like cried and just.
Oh really?
Yeah, like I just couldn't handle it. It was just it was hugely traumatic. Like I can remember everything about that moment now, 30 something years ago. That is such a vivid moment in my life. I remember that chest bursting scene, and my little tiny brain just couldn't process what was happening, and I just lost it. I couldn't deal with it. So anyway, I didn't watch horror movies for many, many years afterwards, and then until I got into high school, I ran into my pusher.
All middle school, you didn't touch them?
I didn't touch them because they scared me too much. And so when I got into high school, I met my pusher, which was in freshman year. I met this dude.
He met you on the corner.
No, I met him in like electronics class or whatever the hell it was. Arthur Nyman.
I bet you he had long hair.
He didn't. He went through stages.
It was parted down the middle.
Side. It was part on the side.
A perfect part.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Black hair.
Dirty blonde. You're really striking out here. Yeah, I mean, Arthur Nyman.
I'm picturing a kind of gothy kid.
No, this dude, he's like a German.
Ooh, interesting.
Looking dude. So he's like blue eyes, pale skin, like that sort of thing. Anyway, he was like, I befriended him, and he was like the first person that I met who was like really into that sort of thing. And so, same thing was you.
Hold on.
What?
Now, getting up to this point.
Yeah.
Did you always feel like something was missing in your life at all?
No, I think I was
was Brad just wandering around
like
being
a shell of myself?
Doing his math homework, being like, there's something else out there.
No, I was very happy. I was a very happy person.
Oh, okay.
And then so I met this dude. I was into like sports. I was all just into like sports and happy things and like action stuff. And then I met this dude who was like, yeah, you see something. He was like a really good artist, and so he could draw like these amazing things. And I remember I was into like Ninja Turtles and stuff, and so he could like draw Ninja Turtles really well. And so I remember I went over his house. We started hanging out, and I went over to his house, and same thing as you, he had like this case of just VHS horror movies.
Just gold.
Yeah, it was just like this cabinet he would just open up.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to show you some things.
Yes.
And so
yeah, he became your best friend.
Yeah, and he would like come over after school, and he would have like, I got Pet Cemetery, and it's like, and I've got Dawn of the Dead, and I'm like, let's do it.
Do
and so
both,
then,
dude.
Yeah, and so then it was just I just like was going down like a dark area where then it was just watching it was just like through different eyes. You know what I mean? Like as opposed to when I was younger, it was like very scary, and now it was like very exciting. And to see these different things in these like movies that I wasn't aware of before, and were doing things that I wasn't aware of, you know, like with like these gory effects, and like that's when I started to like see filmmaking for filmmaking, and like the power of what filmmaking has. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
And I think that's what kind of attracted me to it. And at the time, I wasn't even really interested in filmmaking. I was just interested. I started getting into the horror movies, and getting into watching horror movies is what got me into making horror movies, making movies in general. Like once I started watching them and seeing them as films, and seeing like how a writer, a director, an actor, etc., can take these collections of things and force upon the audience like these moods and feelings, and kind of whose phone is that? That's yours? Is that your phone?
I don't know. Let me shut it off. Hold on.
Oh, so you got the Bachman books over there. Love the Bachman.
What do I got?
The Bachman books, Stephen King's Bachman books.
Oh yeah, you know why? Because ambitious me was like, you know what's in there is do you know the book?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I read it.
Oh, you have?
Running Man, Long Walk, and then there was the other two, the Sniper one, and Rage, and then the Sniper one. I forgot what the Sniper one was called.
The Long Walk was...
Love the Long Walk.
Yeah, so I don't know, I had read about it and was like, maybe I would want to like write that script or something.
He's very good about that. Like he'll like option you rights to his stories for like $1.
Will he?
Seriously, yeah.
Well, because this guy I know, Dan Schechter, he wrote Elmore Leonard's prequel to Jackie Brown. And he didn't ask for the rights or anything. He just wrote the script, and then Elmore Leonard gave him the rights, and he made the movie, like with Jennifer Aniston in it.
Oh, cool. Which movie was this?
Oh, man. Life of Crime?
Oh, yes, I saw that. I don't remember the name of the title, but
let me just make sure.
I did see that with Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, Life of Crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, he directed it, and so I don't know, I was like, I had read that, and I was like, I might want to do that, but...
Yeah, he's usually very good about that. From what I understand, like you can get, I mean, obviously there's a lot of caveats involved, but he'll like option the rights for his movies for if you're like an independent producer or whatever for very, very little.
God, he's so smart, man.
Yeah.
He used to do a lot of cocaine.
He did a lot of stuff. He did cocaine. He was an alcoholic.
Was he an alk?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just picture him in some messed up room in Maine.
I mean, you think about
fucking nut job.
Dude. I mean, you think about the stuff that like he does, like the ideas.
How
he
prolific
comes up with.
he is.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sitting and writing.
Yeah.
You go in your head that far, you start to lose it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But yet he's still, I mean, he's totally cool. Like you see him
great.
at Red Sox games.
Yeah.
He's amazing, man.
He's awesome. I love it. I mean, he was like, I've read so much Stephen King.
Did you read It?
I did read it.
I suck at reading books.
What do you mean you suck at reading books?
I just can't really do it. I mean, I can physically do it. I can read. I learned to read.
Right.
it's just, I don't know. I don't have ADD, I don't think, but I just cannot. It takes me a long time, I guess, to read. I don't know. I suck at reading. What do you want me to say?
All right. Well, you've just said it.
Thank you. I was beating around the bush there. I suck at reading. Did you think the It remake was better than the Orig?
Yeah.
It was, right?
Yeah. It was definitely better than the original. I mean, the original one was terrible.
Really?
I mean, the original miniseries?
Terrible?
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean,
wow.
Other than like Tim Curry as Pennywise was really good, and they did some good things with it. And I like the fact that they made each character fairly unique, and they did a good job with that. But it was also just not a very good. It wasn't a very good miniseries. And I will say,
what TV miniseries, especially from 1990, has ever, it's all crap, kind of. It's weird that they would make that. It's odd that they wouldn't make that a movie. I don't know.
What do you mean?
Like a Paramount or a Dimension Films movie. Like why that would get made into a miniseries.
I would imagine. Well,
it just seems like a waste. I'm sure it made a ton of money.
Well,
of course.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if you can necessarily take that book and put it into a movie.
They just did it.
Well, I know, but I mean they didn't. They put the first half of the book into a movie, and they're gonna make another half. And even that first half, like they condensed the shit out of that book for the It movie that came out last year.
Did they?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you had to. It's a behemoth. It's a 1,200-page book.
What else does the book go into?
There's a lot. There's a ton of stuff. Well, first of all, I mean, without getting too specific into what the problems with the movie was like, I mean, you had 7 characters or whatever, 6 or 7 characters. And in the book, I mean, you spend time with each one. You can't do that in a 2-hour film. Like, it's just not enough time. Like, you look at the film, one of the problems I had with it was like, and I did enjoy it, but like one of the problems I had with it was like, I mean, Mikey was completely useless in the film. Like, his whole thing to bring into the movie was Mikey. Yeah, exactly. His whole thing to bring into the movie was he brought in
Mikey was the black kid?
Yeah, and he brought in like the cattle puncher thing,
yeah.
which was not in the book, if I remember correctly. I mean, I read that book when I was in high school, but yeah, like they kind of, and originally in the book, Mikey was the historian. He's the one who was like really big into the town's history and all that. It wasn't Ben. Like in the.
So what was Ben's role in the book?
Ben's role in the and God, I can't remember specifically, but like I think
totally
Ben
different.
was just a big he was like a very creative person. He was like a writer, and so like he would write these poems, and he was like. He was very creative, and he was also very internal, and he had like this thing for Bev, and so I think he was just kind of like this very sensitive dude who got picked on a lot. And so, they all had like their own little thing. I just felt like they were, obviously in the book, it's, that's huge, so it's much more defined. But one of the things I had a problem with the movie, I just felt like, I loved the interaction of all the kids, and I thought all the kids did a great job, but they didn't do a good enough job like separating them all into their own little characters. But how can you? How can you do that? Like, how can you do that?
It was pretty formulaic where it went, here's the kid, here's their experience with it.
Right.
They meet up with the group again, here's another kid, and it was It was sort of just like, let's get there.
Right. And that was my
it was entertaining.
Yeah, and that was my other issue with it, was that I didn't think it was scary. Which is always like a big complaint of mine for a lot of stuff. But like, I felt like you had some great imagery and some great cinematography and some great direction. They just needed to take a breath for like a minute. Like it was very much every 5 minutes we're gonna do a Pennywise scare scene. And so you're not building any tension up. It's just like every time you see a kid alone, you're like, okay, here comes Pennywise. Oh, and there he is.
Yeah,
oh, he's gonna scare.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gonna disappear, and now the kid's gonna be by himself. And like, it just every single 5 minutes, it was just like, kid alone, scare, next scene. Kid alone, scare, next scene, kid alone. And so you never were able to build up any tension because you knew every 5 minutes Pennywise came up and saw him. Like, they needed to have more scenes in the middle. But once again, it's not their fault because, like, you're shoehorning a large amount of information into a 2-hour film. And, God, that's very difficult.
In a weird way, there's no way it would have not gotten major complaints if you had less Pennywise. Like, people would have been like, Pennywise was barely in it. But I feel like, looking back at it, like what you're saying, less would have been more.
Yeah, it would have been scarier, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if
when
it
he
would have
really
been,
shows up, you're like, God damn.
I don't know if it would have been, I don't know if it would have been as successful. I don't know. I mean, I really just don't know.
Well,
I think partially what made it so successful is the Pennywise stuff. Like, that image is everywhere promoting that movie. And so if they had done, I don't know, I mean, if they had done the Jaws approach of, like, only see him when you absolutely have to, I think it would have been scarier. I don't know if it would have been as successful.
They made it like they do the superhero movies. It was that, but a horror movie.
Sure.
Yeah. It was a super Hollywooded out horror movie.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I mean, I liked it, but yeah, I agree. It was like ambition.
Which I love the fact that, I mean, what I love about it just in general is it's bringing horror movies kind of to the forefront of the genre. I mean, not the genre, of like the movie, of the general movie population. Like, I know you have the, you've got all like the, Insidiouses, and you've got all the Saw movies, and you have like these horror movies that come out in the theater all the time, but they're very throwaway, like they're very much like, oh, here's a couple of jump scares, here's some good moments, but then people go see them, they make a decent amount of money, they make $20, $25 million, and then they go away, and then the next one comes. And so this past year was the first time in a while that we've had like 2 really big movies, or 2 horror movies that made like really big splashes, like from a zeitgeist sort of perspective, right? You had like Get Out, and then you had It, which were both huge successes on a general level and brought kind of attention to horror movies.
Get Out you loved.
I don't want to say I loved it, but I did enjoy it.
I loved it.
Okay.
See, as I've gotten older, and I think it's natural, right? Because I kind of leave the demo of horror, but I'm more now into, I want like a thriller. I want a Silence of the Lambs. I want a Get Out. I want a story. Because even if it, or movies like that do get me scared, it's almost like I've done it.
Okay. Does any movie scare you anymore? Like, do you ever watch a movie that scares you?
No, not really. But going back to when you were checking, like when you were young, I never cried at horror. Like no. I mean, I was actually a man about it.
Right.
But I never was like, oh my God, I can't deal. I would always watch it, and to a certain extent, in the back of my head, I was fully aware that it was a movie. And that's what got me into filmmaking and the interest in that, because I would definitely get scared. Don't get me wrong, but like Jaws messed me up. Like, I still have issues with the ocean.
As do I.
Okay. Most people do. Like, just completely messed me up. But what I took away from that wasn't, oh my God. What I took away was, how did a movie do that to me? Like, how did a movie, the power of a movie to make your emotions go like that is just insanity. And so that was what interests me, and kind of the ability of actually making movies, and just, the practical effects and things like that, that it was always interesting to me. So anyway, I don't know why I was saying that.
It's a very seductive thing, and I feel like I got into it in the same way. I feel like the ability to affect someone in an involuntary way is a very seductive sort of outlet,
seductive,
right?
yes.
In the same way that I look at
like
it
you're pulling the strings.
Right, in the same way of like, I attribute it to like a stand-up comedian, right?
Yes.
In the same way that a stand-up comedian, they stand up on stage, and what gets them off, for lack of a better term, is like hearing the laughter or the jokes that they're telling. And so I feel like
anybody, bodybuilders, it's like, I'm doing this for you.
That is the thing. And like, it's that sort of immediate rush of like, that's what interests me as a horror filmmaker, is the ability to, I can make you scared for something that I do this thing, I put this scene together with these things, with this music and sound and whatever, and by showing this to you, you have no control over whether you're going to be scared or not. You're either scared or you're not. And so that ability to like, hey, I'm going to show you this, and I could potentially make you not be able to sleep tonight.
Right.
And you have no control over whether I do. You're going to watch it, and then if I've done my job, as hard as you will to fight it, you will have a problem sleeping tonight. And like, or you don't, whatever. But like, all of that is...
I don't like thinking of it like that.
It's very, I think that's very seductive.
It's very egotistical.
It is. It's very egotistical. I think horror movies are very...
But you're right. I mean, you're not wrong. That is the appeal. The appeal is to go make something and have somebody watch it and just be like, I shit myself when I watch it. And you're like, yeah, that came from my brain.
Right.
I did this and like put it out there. And now people are like, help me.
Yeah. But that's art in general, right? I mean, the purpose of art is eliciting some sort of emotional response. So if you're putting a drama out and you're putting out, I just watched actually a ghost story last night.
I told you about that, didn't I?
I think you did tell me about that, but I did watch that last night. But anyway, if you're putting out like a drama that is supposed to be like this emotional kind of roller coaster or whatever, you want people to feel something. You want people to be sad or happy or however you want them to feel, but you want that emotion. Like the worst thing you can do as a filmmaker, I think, is to do something that people are just like meh and have zero emotion about it. You know, then it's like I feel like I'm not doing my job. And so, so I feel like a comedian, if you're a comedy director, if you're a comedy writer, your goal is I want to make people laugh. If you're a drama, you want people to feel something. You want people to be sad or happy or whatever emotion you're trying to push. And if you're a horror movie guy, you want people to be scared because you want to feel like you're affecting them in an emotional way for something that you've made. You know, in the same way that artists do the same thing. For like, if you're a painter, you want people to experience an emotion when they look at your painting. Or you're a photographer, you want them to look at that photo and feel something for that photo.
That's too difficult.
Which is beyond my capacity, but yeah, I feel like it's just part of that level of art where you just want people to feel something.
Very insightful. That was pretty good. That was good.
Yeah, well. So now, what I want to know is, obviously, big horror movie guys. We've been doing that. So, how did you get into the scary movie stuff, like the scary mysteries element? Like, what is it about the scary mysteries thing that kind of attracted you to it?
Well, so, I mean, I want to make movies. That's what I would love to do for a living and like really get paid for it, but that's yet to happen. So, you know, so we both do cinematography and videos, all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
So I had done a couple movies and I just really wanted a creative outlet. And so that was part of it. The other part was I wanted to build an audience. I wanted to get people, you know, on board because you have a lot of power. Once people believe in something you're doing or like something you're doing, you have the option to do things, you know? So I've never been a tweeter really, or, you know, I'm not good into social media. Like that's not my thing. I'm never thinking in that vein of stuff. And that hurts me to a certain degree. But what I do for a living is video production stuff. And I know how to tell a story and I know how to make videos. And I was always on YouTube, you know, looking for scary mysteries and never really found stuff that I loved. A lot of stuff is very repetitive. A lot of stuff is robotic voices. A lot of stuff is poor production value, etc. So you can find it, but there was never the stuff I wanted. I wanted like Unsolved Mysteries, the original show.
Sure.
Just kind of on steroids, where you went into darker things and more often and all that stuff. So I was like, I'll give it a try, and I just set it up where I was like, I'll do this weekly and I'll see how it goes. And I committed to it. I was like, I'm going to do it every week. And yeah, I started putting it out, and I've gotten some good responses, and that's how I started it.
Now, have you ever done any of the stuff that like growing up, or when you were doing filmmaking earlier? Have you ever done any of like the paranormal stuff? Have you ever like gone ghost hunting? Have you ever gone looking for monsters? Have you ever gone like? Have you done the thing where it's like, we're gonna get some friends together and we're gonna go hang out in a spooky place and see what happens?
Sure, sort of. I mean, you know, we've all done Ouija boards.
Right.
I mean, all growing up, that's all the books that I looked into was like UFO stuff. I've been to a couple places and done tours, like, yeah. I mean, do I fully expect like I'm gonna see anything? No. But that doesn't change the fact that where you're at is super scary, has a history,
right?
And it's just fun to do, you know?
Yeah. Let me ask you this: do you want to see anything? Like, I'm asking.
Yes.
This is like a weird.
Yes.
I know it might be a weird question. Yes. So the answer would be you absolutely want to see something.
I would be scared out of my mind,
mm-hmm.
and like I'd be like, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen UFOs a couple times. Have you?
Have I seen UFOs?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. But I've never really seen a ghost.
Okay.
Never really had an experience. I've had feelings, right? I've gone into places that feel heavy.
Right.
Done this?
No.
So you don't believe in ghosts?
It's
fine.
No, I don't think I do.
Okay.
But see, there's like a weird chicken and egg scenario,
Yeah.
right? Because I've heard that people who do believe in ghosts, who have seen ghosts, I've heard that it's like they won't come to you unless you believe in them. Like it becomes like a thing where if you're
that's cheap, right?
If you're closed off to it, like you won't
Sure.
see it. If you're open to it, you'll see it. And so I think for me, I believe in UFOs because I just feel like that's science, right? Like it just seems like ridiculous. Like obviously we're not alone in this world and in this universe, and so it of course makes 100% sense that they would be UFOs. But with the ghosts thing, it is something that's beyond my understanding as to what it is. Like I don't know. Like
But you believe that. So forget ghosts, forget the
Right.
word ghost.
Mm-hmm.
But are you saying you believe something is happening in that sort of a realm? Or are you just saying forget
I
it?
don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't have the information. Like I guess my thing is like I'm sure there's something, right? I mean, we live in a very specific sort of frequency of life, right? Like our frequency that we live in from like a dimensional standpoint, however you want to say it. But like we live in a certain channel, and I'm sure there are like other things beyond our perception that are around.
Yes.
You know?
Totally.
I just don't know what that is. Like I don't know if is that a ghost?
I completely agree.
Is that someone who died in 1786 that's hanging around my apartment, or is that something else? You know, like I just don't know. And I know like for me, I don't know if I want to see a ghost because then that will change my entire perception of reality in a way that is gonna be a problem. You know what I mean? Like
But I mean, wouldn't that be so eye-opening and amazing? Like you'd be like, wow, so that's real.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be though. Like I think, I don't know if that would be, because I just think it would just change so much. If you were able to prove, or you know, within a certain spectrum, that there are these things, I feel like it would be a bad thing for me. To like, because like I feel I've got my head around like a fairly decent.
Why? It would just be like you were saying. It would just be another thing.
I guess so. So a couple of years ago, I did a film shoot, at an old farmhouse. This had nothing to do with like ghosts or anything. It was a shoot for a cooking show of all things. And
where?
It was in Pennsylvania. And so we were staying in an old farmhouse because it was like the cooking show was like this dude who owns this farmhouse and he cooks everything up, whatever. And so we were staying, the film crew was staying in this house for the shoot. And I was in this old room upstairs where like no wallpaper on the walls, like it had been like ripped down. Like it was legit looked like a horror, like out of a horror movie. Mm. And I remember like I walked in, I'm like, I gotta sleep here. This is gonna be real tough. Side note, I still get scared at horror movies. And so
yeah, you do.
So like I'm lying in bed and I turn the light off and it's just like pandemonium. Like it's just the walls and everything just looks so much like a horror movie. Mm-hmm. Like I just can't sleep. I like turn the light off for a little bit and I'm like, nope, turn that light back on. And I would like read for a little bit and then I would turn it off. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, I don't believe in ghosts. But the woman who lived there said that there were ghosts in that house. She 100% believed there were ghosts in the house. And before I went to bed, mind you, right before I went to bed, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, she said to us, if you see a ghost and they ask you any questions, just say yes. That was what she said and was like,
regardless of the question.
Yeah. She's like, if they ask you any questions,
would you like to go to hell?
Just say yes. Good night. Like, and that was like we're talking
dead serious.
Dead serious. And I'm like, I have so many more questions. Like,
yeah, you can't send me to bed.
What are they gonna ask me? Like, what if I panic and say no? Like, what are the stakes here? Like, what goes on? She's like, oh, this woman. She used to live in this house like years ago, and she's part of the family. She just wants to know that whoever is here is also part of the family. So she'll ask you if you're part of the family. You just say yes, and then you'll be fine. And it's like, well, what if I say no? Like, what if I panic and just say no? She had no answer for that. And so now I'm like lying in bed, and like in my head, I'm like, I don't believe in ghosts. But what if a ghost just appears? What if this woman does appear in front of me and does ask me a question? Like, my perception of reality will be changed by 180 degrees. I don't know if it is. I don't know if that is awesome. I don't know if that is great. I don't know if I think that would like alter
you would have like you'd have superior knowledge.
Would that be superior?
I think so.
Oh man.
You'd be like, dude, I know because I'm normal and I didn't even believe in him. And some old lady said, "Are you part of the family?" And I was like, yes. And she was like, good night. And I was like, so that just happened.
Yeah, but I guess I wouldn't take it in stride like that. Like, so...
Like what? You would sink into your bed and be like, everything I thought this world was is
like
bullshit.
Up is down, left is right. Like everything would just be a mess. Like I just couldn't... Like, does gravity still work? Like everything would just be up for grabs at that point. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I mean, I remember, back in Massachusetts, we used to do like ghost hunting, right? Like I had
really like you and your boys, like your friends.
Yeah, like not like super duper. Like obviously, like the people today, they go in with tons of equipment and they're able to do.
No, but you guys would like form a mission.
But we would have a mission, like, all right, we're gonna go to this place because in Massachusetts, there's like 1 billion haunted places in Massachusetts, right? So I lived in Taunton, which is
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden, and that was in Bedford.
I spent a night there.
Yeah, that's weird.
In the room.
See, I wouldn't be able to do that.
In the room where she murdered the mom.
I would totally not be able to do that.
It's made up completely like that room. There's pictures of the murder scene on the dresser. It's morbid, dude.
Really?
Morbid. Yes.
See, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would not be able to handle that.
So I got up in the middle of the night, like, there was a couple people there and you did all this stuff, like they took you on the tour and it was a little, bit of a production, too much of a production for me. But yeah, I got up in the middle of the night and I was with my wife and I was like, I've had it with these fucking ghosts. Like I lost me, because I couldn't sleep. Like I was in and out and like there was just, it was obviously uncomfortable. And I got up, I went downstairs, I shut off the TV, which was playing Unsolved Mysteries, Lizzie Borden on repeat.
Of course.
And I was just like, I was basically calling him out. I was like, enough of this like taunting. I was like, if you're here, like, I was half asleep. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go off.
No, that's
you were saying.
Fine. What was I saying?
You were in time.
Oh, ghost hunting, yeah. So like we were near the Bridgewater. So there's this legend of like the Bridgewater Triangle, which centers around.
Oh yes, what is this?
The Hockomock Swamp, and I know I'm gonna get this all wrong.
Wait, where's Bridgewater?
Bridgewater is you can look it up, but like Bridgewater is right near Taunton, so it's southeastern Massachusetts. It's near like Lakeville, and like Dighton and Rainham.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's this thing called the Hockomock Swamp, which is like this very notably haunted swamp. And there's,
haunted? Why?
Supposedly someone has seen Bigfoot in the Hockomock Swamp.
Okay.
And there is like I think there are like lights and I don't know. There's all these things. If you really dive into it, there are like tons of literature on the Bridgewater Triangle. And like deals with like ley lines and all these other things. I
love the ley lines.
And so there were times where like I had a friend of mine who was big into was like liked that stuff, and I was dating a girl at the time who also was really big into that. And so was
she
like,
gothy?
I wouldn't say she was gothy.
Black fingernails?
She might have had black fingernails, but I wouldn't.
Gothy.
That's it. Just your black fingernails. You're gothy.
No normal girl does black fingernails.
Yeah, but anyway, so like,
anyway.
I wouldn't necessarily categorize her as gothy, but I mean, she bought stuff from Hot Topic.
That's gothy, dude. No normal girl. Normal girl's going into Gap or something.
So anyway, we would go on like little trips to like try and see stuff. And like these,
I'm just checking the battery.
That's fine. It's to see stuff that's like, notable areas to see if we see like certain things. And I mean, we never really saw anything, but it was definitely. We did interview a guy who supposedly saw Bigfoot in the Hockomock Swamp, and
what was he like?
He was not the most credible source in the world.
See, that's the other problem with all this stuff, ghosts and that kind of stuff, is that a lot of the people, too many, are just very uncredible oddballs, correct?
It's tough.
Like it kind of hurts you.
Yeah.
Like it'd be one thing if a Wall Streeter was like, oh yeah, I saw Bigfoot.
Right.
And you're like, okay, now let's talk about it.
Well, see, here's my thing. Here's my point. The flip side to that is it the seeing of these things that unhinges the people themselves?
Ooh.
Like, that's my point with the ghosts. Like, once you see it, does it then unlock that part of your brain where all of a sudden you become that person?
Very cool.
And that's what I'm afraid of, is like...
now I understand.
You see what I'm saying? Okay. See what my fear is? Like...
And you just move to a shed in the woods and
right.
you're like...
But... So anyway, so when in my younger days, like we had started we were actually going to do a documentary on the Bridgewater Triangle and like deal with all these different places in and around this area that had like...
It says Thunderbirds.
Oh, yep, the Thunderbirds, the giant Thunderbirds.
Animal mutations.
I don't remember the animal mutations.
And Native American curses.
Yeah, there's a lot of Native American, because obviously New England, Massachusetts, there's a ton of Native American stuff there, and so there's all sorts of like Native American burial grounds and like Native American rocks and spiritual things, and so there's a lot of things
in the woods
all over the place in Massachusetts, and so that feeds into a lot of this stuff. Different rocks where people have been killed or murdered or sacrificed or whatever. So yeah, I remember we were going to do like a documentary on the Bridgewater Triangle. We had done an interview with this dude who had seen Bigfoot, and we had like went to these different areas, and we never really did anything with it. But I feel like I've done a decent amount of like We did a fake paranormal show once. We started to. That was another thing that we started to do. Like a joke paranormal show, where it was like it was going to be played straight, but it was all made up stuff. So it was like all scripted, but we were going to play it straight.
Got it.
So it was going to be like going to ride that line of like, is this real?
Are you talking when you're a kid?
No, this is like
real.
This is adult.
Got
this
it.
is like when I started doing like.
Okay, no, I just
stuff.
didn't know if you were talking Taunton days.
No, I mean this is Taunton days, but this is
okay.
This is when I was an adult. This is like when I'd like started getting into filmmaking, and I had already made some horror stuff, and then from there it went to once we discovered all these things that are happening in that area, we were like, oh well, let's do some stuff. Let's go look at this, and that kind of like. Late at night, we'd get a bunch of friends together and like, oh, let's go down by this thing that's supposed to have like a lot of ghostly things that happen there. And then we'd go down there.
How many horror movies have you made? Shorts and everything?
Shorts included?
Yeah.
I want to say 7 or 8.
Really?
I think so. Let me think. I did three features, and then professional shorts. I probably made about 4 professional shorts.
Can people see your stuff anywhere?
Yeah, you can see.
Like for anyone who's listening who might be curious.
Yeah, the last horror film I made is called The Killing of Jacob Marr. That's on Amazon Prime. I made a short last year called Boundaries. That's on Amazon Prime as well.
Oh yeah, you showed me that.
Yeah, and then I made a short this last about 6 or 8 months ago called Cabin 11, but that got into the Atlanta Film Festival and it's kind of circulating some other festivals. That's not out yet.
Is that your best one so far, you think?
What, like, Cabin 11?
I mean, do you feel good about it?
I feel I like it. I thought we did a really good job. I was very happy with it. I mean, there's still a lot of issues with it because I think there's always issues in everything you do. I don't think I've ever watched anything I've done and been like, oh, this is perfect.
No, of course.
I wish I'd done some things differently, but I think the overall product I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff, my first like professional movie was called Rusty that went to a couple film festivals. That's not really anywhere you can see it.
When did you do that?
I did that in 2001.
Yeah, I mean, I did, like I was hired to direct one in 2010, and yeah, just nothing happened. That's like the depressing part of independent filmmaking, you know?
Yeah.
The distribution side.
Oh, I mean, did you finish this? You didn't actually do it, right? Or did you actually finish it?
No, of course.
Oh, all right. What was the movie?
Work It Out. I mean, I was hired, like some guy wrote it and directed it, and he had a small budget, but we did good with what we could.
Yeah.
And I mean, it won a couple festivals and things like that, so it was cool. I mean, I was young. I was 25 or 26 or something when I made it, something like that. Anyway, it's a big endeavor.
Yeah.
You do the pre-production, you shoot, and editing takes closer to a year than not, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just kind of like when it doesn't, and then that's it, especially because all the budget, no one's ever like, yeah, let's save half of it for marketing and things like that. So it's always tough.
Yeah, I mean, I ran into a bunch of stuff with The Killing of Jacob Marr, the last feature I did with distribution. Like, we released it, we sent it to a couple places, we got some distribution deals, and then the deal that we signed, the distribution company was terrible. They held on to the rights for a year and a half and did nothing with it, and I had to like threaten to sue to get the rights back, and then I ended up getting the rights back, and so by the time I went to release it again, it was like 3 years after I had released it.
Out, right?
And then nobody wanted it at that, like all the people that were interested in it so we released it in 2000, I think it was the same time, we released it in 2010, and so after releasing it in 2010, we signed immediately a distribution deal with a company, and then I didn't get the rights back until like 2013. And so now I went back to all the places that were interested and was like, hey, this movie came back, like, are you still interested in a distribution deal? And they were like, nah, man, that's 3 years old. We don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And so it was a real struggle to get it out there. And then luckily I came across the company that I worked with, Kino Nation, that took it and got it into like Amazon Prime and a bunch of other places. But I mean, still, like, it's been out now for 4 years, and it's still getting into places, right? Like there's a place called Screambox, which is like a Netflix for horror movies, where you pay a monthly fee and then it has all these horror movies in it. We just got into Screambox, and it's like, it's not there yet, but they got accepted to it. And so here's this movie now. It's been out 4 years, technically, and it's still getting into new places. And it's like, Jesus, man, like, you always want to have it like put out there and then have it immediately picked up and all this other stuff. And so, you know, ultimately it's ends up being, you know, 8 years from the time that it was actually released.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm dying to do another feature, you know, but yeah, it's such an investment, man.
Yeah.
As far as time and all that stuff, and it's like, you know, that's what I was saying. The creative outlet with Scary Mysteries is like, yeah, they're not movies, but it's sort of immediate, and then there's immediate feedback. You know,
Yeah.
It's sort of like,
And it's a topic that's interesting.
yeah, and it's just like, it's like all I really want to do with movies is entertain.
Yeah.
All I want to do with these videos is entertain. So it's, you know, there's a reward there when it's like, yeah, that was awesome, or someone's like, you know, says whatever, a nice compliment. Yeah, a movie would be amazing to make because it is a fun process, and if it you know, hit and did well, the amount of feedback would be great. But it's just like, it's just a long, huge fight undertaking, right?
Yeah, and I feel like the things for me for independent film that always get me is the fact that, you know, we're taught when we started making films, right? Like, you know, I started making films in high school with that pusher, the dude that got me into horror movies.
Yeah.
He's the one that we started making films together. Because once I started watching the horror movies, and we started watching together, and then we started talking about the filmmaking process, and that's where the love of making films, we're like, we got to try and make some of this stuff. And so then the two of us together started making these shorts and making like all these different videos. You know, we made all these like horror movies, like shorts and longer movies or whatever. And then, and that's what kind of ignited the whole thing for me. But, you know, when you start making that stuff, like, you know, even when you go to school for it, they teach you so much of the creative element. They don't even touch on the business side of it. And that's the side that gets hung up on the most, right? Like, I look back on what I did with the last movie, The Killing of Jacob Marr, where it was, you know, we released it, we got signed, huge issues, had to fight to get the rights back, trying to send it out again. Like, all of that could have been avoided if I had some semblance
education.
of information,
Sure.
right? Like, since then, I have focused so much on the back end of it, of like, okay, what needs to happen once the movie's made? Like, obviously, the making of it, I'm pretty comfortable with.
Yeah.
But like, what happens afterwards? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And so I have been focusing the last couple of years on just figuring out, like, how do you make that work? How do you make that complete package from inception to distribution?
And you have to. Unless you get lucky with like a Clerks or something.
Right.
But, you know, and who knows? I don't know how he packaged it. You know, maybe he did know what he was doing on that end. But
it was that was also a simpler time. I hate to say that, but that was a simpler time where you didn't have independent film like you do today. You know, like now, one of the toughest things for doing anything independent is anybody with a phone can make a good-looking video, and so you just have so many people making things that there's so much noise, it's tough to cut through it. You know, it used to be, I remember not that long ago, where you could sign with a distribution company and you could get like for an independent film, you get like a little bit of an advance. Nothing crazy, but you could get like a decent advance, something. And
now it's like, no.
When I was selling Killing of Jacob Marr, like that wasn't even on the table. Like, no, that wasn't even just on the table. That wasn't in the room. That wasn't in the house. Like, that wasn't even on the same planet.
Right.
Like, it was just like, no. You have an independent film. You give it to us. We'll try and sell it, and then we'll give you whatever we think you're going to give you. Right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Because if you don't want it, there's a million people behind you that have a movie just like yours and will do the same thing because they're just thinking of numbers and how they can sell it to the distribution place.
That was, you know, going back to the YouTube stuff. I mean, that was part of getting a following. It was like if I had a following, if I were to ever make another movie,
right,
I'd be able to show people who would be like, I like this guy, I like the work he does, I'll check it out, you know. Right. So, you know, that's part of it, just kind of like taking because all those companies and stuff, a lot of them are just crap, right? Like it's a
companies as far as
distribution.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's like why
scams.
Like you can you know, you can do it yourself basically if you have, you know, if a huge person with a YouTube or whatever following makes a movie.
Yeah.
They just do this and a million people know that it exists.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't have that, you're at the mercy of a distribution company and they do that.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll take your movie and we'll look at it and maybe you'll make $1. And you're like,
yeah.
I guess that's my only option.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've run into the same thing, but I've been to a lot of film festivals and a lot of like conventions and things like that. And if I had a nickel for every filmmaker that has some horror distribution story or this distribution guy ripped me off story, like I would have funding for my next movie. You know what I mean? Like every filmmaker I've run into, every single one of them has had like this distributor has ripped me off story. And it's like, God damn. And it's such a tough thing to navigate through if you're going at it from like a very reactive place, which is what most filmmakers do. Most filmmakers come at it very reactively. They're just, and I did the same thing.
What, the distribution side?
The distribution side, they come at it very reactively, where it's
Dude,
just
when
like...
I did that first movie, we didn't talk about that. Like,
No.
that was my education on it.
Yeah, because you don't know.
We had to do pre-production, make the movie, edit it, and then it's done. And then it's done, and you go, well, now what? And then you're like, well, you need thousands of dollars for film festivals. You need thousands of dollars for packaging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, blah, 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 right? And it's just like, God.
Yeah, it's because we're so hung up on
getting it done,
which
you should be,
and which is the part that we care about the most, right? So like
it is the most. It's arguably what's most important, but obviously you have to have the product.
Yeah, but I mean, from our perspective, like we're not signing up to this
to distribute.
Exactly. We're signing up this to be directors, to create these movies, to make these experiences. Where it goes after that, like we don't really care. We want to connect with the audience or whatever. So like that's not what we signed up for, and so we don't. That's why we don't have that vision for it.
And that's the independent
right.
film
But
side.
the unfortunate thing is you have to, because without that you don't get the first part. And so, so many filmmakers come into it, myself included, from a very from a position of, well, we're just going to make this, and then once it's done, we'll figure it out. And that doesn't work. Like, you look at any movie that's out there that like any Hollywood movie or any movie with a studio, like, do you think they do that? Where they just make a movie and are just like, yeah, you know, well, we'll see what happens when it's done.
Right.
No, of course not. Like, they've got this thing mapped out before anything happens. And so that's one of the things that I've learned specifically because, you know, I did a movie in August where I was just the DP on it, and I had asked him like what the plan is for distribution, and it was like they didn't have one, you know, and it's like, and that's not uncommon. It's just, it's like, yeah, you're spending so much time on like making it, and then you're just hoping that once you finish it, someone's gonna come out of the sky, and be like, I will take your movie and bring you millions of dollars.
Yes, exactly. Like someone from Miramax is going to be in the film festival audience of my movie.
Right.
And go, well, that's a gem.
Yeah. You know, and it's like you hear and the problem is we're fed this because we hear these stories. You know, like I heard a story of the company that signed, did you see the movie Troll Hunter? It was like a Norwegian
I've
movie.
seen. Oh yeah, with the big giant thing.
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
It was really good. It was like a mockumentary.
Yeah.
In like Norway of this film crew that was going to go find the trolls in Norway. Or I think it was Norway. But great movie. But I had talked to the woman who the company that she ran a distribution company, and she was friends with like the guy who, whatever the distribution company that signed them, I forgot what it was. I think it was Magnolia signed them. She knew the guy from Magnolia, and she told me this story of, you know, he was in the audience, he saw the movie,
really,
he loved the movie, and then he was like, found out that the filmmaker was on the way to the airport and like immediately like left the theater and like jumped in a cab and chased the airplane down and like caught him at the gate, like literally like chased this director down to be like, I love your movie, I want your movie, like talk to me and whatever. And it's like, that's such an amazing story, but like that never happens. Like that happens once in a million, you know? So, but like us as filmmakers, we hear that and we're like, I want to be that one. I want to be that Julia Roberts in The Pretty Woman. You know, I want to have that experience, and it's just, unfortunately, it's just not realistic.
Wait, are we being cynical, or is this just being real?
I think you have to be cynical. I think you have to. The way the film industry is now, you have to be cynical, because it's like, in the 70s and in the 80s, I feel there was less people doing it, and so...
Just give me 1 sec.
Sure.
I'm just going to pause this real quick. Okay, we're back.
Good. Right.
Sorry, I don't know what's up with the battery. It's fine.
Okay.
But I was just thinking, I think if the battery dies on that thing, then you lose everything.
It doesn't record it?
I don't know. I've heard that.
I don't know.
So I just saved it.
All right,
anyway. So sorry, keep going.
What was I saying?
It
was the
being cynical.
Being cynical, yeah. I think in the 70s and the 80s, you could afford to be a little bit more pie in the sky, because I just don't think there was as many people out there doing it. And so, like, if you were an independent, for me, Evil Dead was the first independent film that I was like aware of. As
what
like,
year did it come out?
That was 80.
No.
That was 81, 82. What year did it come out? Look it up.
78.
No, I don't think it was the 70s.
Yeah, bro. 1983. Wow,
83, okay.
I was way off. Anyway.
So, like, I remember Evil Dead was one of those movies that I loved. Evil Dead. I watched them in weirdly reverse order, but I loved Evil Dead for it being like this independent film that kind of gained a lot of traction in a weird way, for like this completely independent, no studio behind it at all. A couple guys from college kind of like got together and made it.
Because of the effects.
Yeah, but it was also just, I just think it was a different time where there weren't
Oh,
many
like you're
people,
saying you couldn't do that now?
I don't think so, because I just don't think back then, like, there weren't enough people making these types of movies back then.
Right.
And so if you came to someone and you're like, hey, here's this movie that we shot, they're much more like, oh, well, there's only like 12 movies.
Yeah, like I will actually watch
Right,
this.
you know what I mean? And so I just feel like, you know, that's what they did. They didn't have any idea what they were doing. They made it, and then they brought it to like these different places and showed it, and had like screenings at these festivals or whatever, and then it got picked up from there, and then, you know, obviously went on from there. But it was like, I just don't think it's everything now is so focused on the bottom line and what's going to make money and where the return is coming from, that I just don't think people care about taking chances on films that have no audience. Like, I just don't think that's a viable thing anymore. Like, I think there is always going to be a mindset of, like,
we need to know what's going to happen.
we need to know where this is going. And so
But I mean, that's just smart business stuff.
Yeah, it's because,
I mean, no one's gonna just give you $100,000 for.
Yeah, well, let's face it. I mean, film is a fairly new sort of concept from a weird perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
sure.
You're talking 100
human
years.
history, yeah.
You're talking 100 years, and for the first half of that 100 years, it was everything studio pictures, where it was just a lot that would create something, and then it really wasn't until you started getting into the 70s, which isn't that long ago, when you started getting these auteurs come out and break away from the studio system and to do their own thing and be like, we're gonna make this little niche thing.
Like the blaxploitation.
Yeah, in like the 60s and the 70s, and you start getting these offshoots of different versions and like away from the big studio. So I feel like it was just like, it was an infancy, and so now we've learned so much that there has to be a bit of cynicism in it. There has to be this realistic idea and this approach of like, okay, I understand you want to make a movie, but how are we going to take this movie and make it profitable and make it work for everyone involved? Because there's real dollars that have to go into this, and someone's going to be accountable for that. Which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I think like there are times I feel where I like long for those days, like, oh, what it would have been like to be a filmmaker at that time, right? Where you just like, let's get some friends together in a 16mm camera and let's just make a movie, and chances are we can sell it afterwards. Like, there's a good chance we could like sell it afterwards.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's realistic now, but what we can do now is so much more impressive, I think.
Right, and we also we have a lot more, there's a lot other way, like the whole distribution game, that's what I'm saying, is sort of falling on its face.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the music industry, in the sense that it's like, nobody's buying CDs and whatnot. So I don't know, it's just, what I'm saying is it's different, but it's also good. That things are different.
Yeah, no, I like it because there is a little bit more of accountability to it. So, so now going into certain projects, or going into, if you want to make another film, I want to make another film, and so going into it, there are certain check boxes that you need now, versus maybe a bunch of years ago you didn't need to worry about that as much. Now you kind of have to have, like, you have to be able to have a lot of irons in the fire, and you have to know where you're going to go, and you can't just be like, oh, whatever, But I mean, one of the things that's great about where we are now is you can produce a movie for a hell of a lot cheaper than before.
Exactly.
I mean, the budget for Jacob Marr was like $20,000, and like, dude, in the 70s and 80s, you couldn't make a movie for $20,000. Like, there's no way. That's not even possible. I mean, Evil Dead was like $250,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a possible thing to do. So I think it's
budget
exciting.
Here says 350.
What's this?
Evil Dead.
Oh,
3,000.
is it 350?
That's what it says.
Oh, I thought it was 250. It doesn't really matter. Either way, like, it's still
that's no joke.
That's no joke. It's still a lot of money, and so it's just something that now you can make stuff look very good for less money. You don't need to have millions and millions of dollars to make something look good. You can kind of do it. I mean, look at like Jaws. What was that? I think that was like 20 million or something.
Dude, Jaws still stands up 100%.
It's fantastic. And that's like really, it's all just
I watch it maybe once every 2 years or something. And
Sure.
every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good.
It's wonderful. It is by far the movie I've probably seen the most in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Out of like, if you think of like every movie that you've watched, that's probably the movie that I've seen the most amount of times.
Oh, real quick, favorite, I hate this question, so I'm going to give it to you.
Oh, great.
What's your favorite horror movie? Do you have one? Or because I don't.
No, I mean, I don't have, I mean, if you want like...
Give me top three.
All right.
In no particular order.
Jaws, Alien, Exorcist. There's like
those are
cuff,
pretty solid.
Off the cuff with like in like the nebulous of that, you've got like The Thing and like The Omen.
Oh, you know what I watched the other night? Ghosts of Mars.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So I don't think I'd ever watched that really full through, but I was like, it's John Carpenter, let's do it. And yeah, that was kind of a mess, huh?
Yeah, that was not my favorite movie. I saw that once a long time ago and just fine with that.
It's weird. It had shimmering moments of John Carpenter, but then it was just.
Well, he always has those.
It just should have not been done on Mars because they had to build a set and it was just kind of meh.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're doing another movie, correct?
Correct.
Called Cryptid?
Called Cryptid, yeah. It's a creature feature.
And how far are you along with it? What's the deal?
Well, pre-production we're pretty far along on. So the script's done. And we've got some of the crew. So we've got some of the main, we've got the DP, and we've got the music person, we've got a couple executive producers.
They're gonna originally score it?
She will originally score it, yeah. She's done a couple of my movies, and so she actually works as a composer for video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so she's going to score it. So basically, yeah, I mean, we're pretty far along. Right now, we're in our fundraising aspect of it.
Yeah, and what is the fundraising thing? You're doing something new, right?
We're doing something a little different. So, have you ever done a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or anything like that?
Yeah.
All right, but at least you're aware of.
Right, I know how it works.
And I've done a Kickstarter a long time ago, and one of the things that kind of bothered me about it was the donation thing. Kind of really bothered me. Like
you didn't like asking for money.
I didn't like asking for money, right? It
feels so pathetic.
It really does. And I hate it. It's an unfortunate part of the business, but I just don't like the donation aspect of it. And I remember when I had first done a Kickstarter, and this is 8 years ago when Kickstarter first kind of came out. I remember I just didn't like the whole donation aspect, and I remember being like, why can't I just, instead of asking for a donation, at the time I had gotten investors in my movie that had a share or stake in the film itself, and I was like, why can't I do that in Kickstarter? Why can't I have people donate, but they get, as a perk, they get shares in my film, and then
totally makes sense.
That way they can recoup their money and do
and
revenue
I think I told you I thought about that too. It's funny.
Yeah, because it seems like
because
makes sense,
and
right?
it stemmed from not wanting to ask and be like, I'll get you whatever generic thing.
Right.
It was like
DVD.
If you believe in me,
right.
If you believe in the project, you get to actually invest and potentially make money.
Yeah, it's a win-win, I think. It gets everyone kind of on board and pushing in the right direction, and it gets everyone a stake in how successful it is. And so
What's it called? What's the site?
The site is startengine.com.
And this is new?
This is brand new. So when Kickstarter was around, and they were doing these crowdfunding things, I was like, well, why can't I just give them stake in my movie? And they said, well, no, you can't do that. That is very illegal. You can't sell shares online to the general public. And so I thought, well, that sucks. And so for the longest time, I kind of just went about my normal thing. I had a small Kickstarter campaign for a different movie, and it was successful, and we were fine, and we moved on. But then now raising money for this movie, everyone always says, oh, you should do a Kickstarter campaign. And I'm like, I don't want to do a Kickstarter campaign because I just don't like the donation aspect. And
yeah. It's almost overdone, right?
It is almost. There's so much noise out there. There's so many people doing
too much noise.
I started an Indiegogo campaign a couple years ago for it with the idea of well, let's see what we can get.
Yeah.
And then it was about as successful as I expected it to be, which is not at all. And so, because I'm just well, who would do this? Who would give us a decent amount of money for essentially nothing? Who would write us a check for $1,000?
Wait, what's the site? Sorry.
Startengine.com. So who would write a check for $1,000 and then walk away and just be like, "Have fun, boys. Have fun storming the castle." That sort of thing. And so I thought, all right, well, crowdfunding is just not going to work because we're trying to raise basically about $100,000. The budget for the film is $350,000, but we're trying to raise $100,000 because we'll get matching funds in other ways. But if we can raise $100,000, we can then get matching funds as well as get some pre-sales and some tax incentives that will basically cover the latter 2/3 of the budget. So I thought crowdfunding was just not going to work anymore until I had heard about equity crowdfunding. It was something that had just started, and it had gone through. Obama had signed in the Jobs Act 3 or whatever it was, or 4, a couple years ago. I think it was in 2012, and so it was just starting to kind of go through where it allowed you to sell equity online. At the time, it still had to be to accredited investors, but you could do it online. But there was a lot of things you had to do in the foreground. You had to vet the people who wanted to invest, and they had to go through a whole process to become accredited.
So it was a big process, and then
production.
This plays Start Engine.
Well, in 2016, in May of 2016, a separate section of the Jobs Act called Regulation CF, Regulation Crowdfunding, went into play that then allowed the general public to invest in anything online. So it basically it opened up the floodgates to say, if you have a startup business, really it was designed for startup ventures, right? If you had a startup business, you could now go to the internet and do a crowdsourcing where as small as $100 gets you an equity stake in the company.
But what does it get you, like 0.1 or whatever?
Yeah, whatever it happens. It depends on whatever you're looking for, right?
Sure.
Like if you can do, I think for the Regulation CF, the cap is $1 million. So you can't get any more than $1 million within, I think it's within a year or something like that. And then beyond that, you have to go to like Regulation A or Regulation D, and then you can go up to like 50 million. It goes crazy. But with the Regulation CF that just became legal, you can now, for as little as $100, you can get an equity stake if you're only trying to raise under $1 million. So when that happened, I thought, well, this is it. This could change the way the filmmaking is.
Because then you're not asking for money. You're saying, yeah, it's just way better.
Right, because like maybe you saw this the same way as I did, but like Kickstarter, there is a cap with Kickstarter, right? Like the amount of money you can raise with a Kickstarter Indiegogo campaign is like around 20,000, realistically. You can get more, but there are other external factors in order to get more. Like obviously everyone points like Zach Braff and then the Kirsten Bell with the
and those piss me off.
Those yeah. So
do those
like,
piss you off?
Yeah, absolutely. Those got like millions of dollars. And yeah, you can do it if you have like these other factors involved. But realistically speaking, $20,000 for a film, if you have a product, it's way better. It's way different. But for a film, $20,000 is like kind of a cap. I've seen people get more. I've seen people get 40, 50, 100,000 with a lot of work and a lot of time, like spending years like putting stuff together. It's very, very difficult. And then from that level to if you want, like our movie is $350,000. So if you take that and you want to go to like a studio, well, a studio or a production company, they don't want a $350,000 movie. Like they don't want to put money up for that. They want a $1 to $5 million movie. You know what I mean? Like if they're going to put that kind of money into it, they want it to be that next level higher.
Sure.
And so you end up kind of being in this weird gray area of like, it's too much, you can't get it on Kickstarter, and it's not enough to really get the attention of like the bigger guys to fund it. So you're in like this weird gray area. And so that's why I feel like this new method is the way to do it, to get that middle of the road. These independent films that are like need $100,000 to $500,000, because then you can get a realistic amount of money from the general public, and you're offering enough of a stake where they can see a return on it. And then you have the ability to kind of make your movie the way you want it, and then you can go from there. But I just think this could open the door to a very interesting element of independent film.
And everything, really.
Yeah.
I mean, just because the Kickstarter stuff is so old. I don't know.
Yeah, and we started a campaign in December, where it was like one of the
Wait, what is cryptid?
Cryptid is, you mean what is the cryptid or what is the movie Cryptid?
I'll tell you what your movie is about. Ready?
Okay, go.
It's an old school creature feature about a group of teens.
No, but go ahead. Keep going. I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm going to let you unravel this whole story, and then I'll tell you what it's actually about.
All right. A group of teens go camping in the woods of New England.
Okay.
And they get attacked by a Bigfoot-like creature. And that's my log line for your film. And how close am I? That's what I picture when I hear cryptid.
Okay. It is set in a New England town.
Boom.
Boom. You got that right out of the gate. Set in Maine. So you've got that.
Beautiful.
You've got it. You're ready to go with that. There are no teenagers.
There's a group of people.
There is not a group of people.
Damn.
How big of a group do you consider a group? Because it's two people,
like
really.
5.
Okay, no, it's 2 people. The story of Cryptid centers around a journalist who lives in this small town, and he comes across an animal attack that he believes is different than what the authorities are saying it is.
They're saying it's a black bear.
They're saying it's a black bear. He says this can't be a black bear. And so he goes with his partner, who's a photographer, and they go and investigate to see what exactly this is. And they find out, spoiler alert, it's not a bear.
Okay, that's cool. That sounds pretty good.
So it's kind of like, it's like a Jaws.
Is it a slow burn?
It's a slow burn. It's kind of like a Jaws mixed with like a Zodiac sort of thing where it's like,
put the pieces.
The main characters are a journalist and a photographer, and they're trying to put this story together to figure out what is doing these things in this town.
How many deaths in the film?
5.
Good number. I like that. Nice.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit of a slower burn.
Is that 5 we see on camera? We probably see 3 on camera.
3 on camera. 3 on camera. Like,
2 we see the aftermath.
Yeah, that's about accurate. Because like one of
them
is
we
like,
see photos. Come on.
Yeah.
I like it. This is cool.
Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of, it's a bit of an old school creature feature, so you're right about that, in that we're using practical effects. It's not going to be digital. It's going to be like a dude in a suit sort of thing with like tangible, practical things. You're not going to see the creature much until the last act of the movie.
Good. So we're not going to do the it thing and just...
Nope. We're not. We're going to see pieces of them. We're going to see the effect of them.
Is he a Yeti?
He's not a Yeti. He's... I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. It's already on. It's like a lizard type creature.
Okay.
So it's like a lizard. I already have like sketches on my Facebook page, so it's like the cat's out of the bag. It's not really a big
okay, all right,
secret.
yeah, I didn't know.
But yeah, it's more of like a lizardy sort of dinosaur-y kind of.
Kind of X-Files-y?
It's, yeah, I guess maybe probably a more valid description it would be like Jaws and X-Files, where it's like, because it is like a male-female kind of partnership that is trying to decipher this mystery and figure out what it is. And there is a sheriff involved who, you know, he doesn't believe, and so they're trying to convince him, as well as trying to like crack this story. Nice. There's probably a little bit more selfish intentions with this. It's not like we're doing this for the good of humanity. It's more, at least in the first part of the movie, it's like, I want to crack this story because this is going to be huge. In the same way of like the Ghost Hunters, where it's like, if we can prove this, if we can make this a reality, then it will blow people's minds and I will be famous. Yeah, right. So I think that's the motivation in the beginning, and then obviously things change as the movie goes on, and that's why it becomes like a character thing. But nice. But that is Cryptid. That is the gist of the movie.
That's awesome. So if people wanted to invest or check out those pictures, where do they go? Facebook?
Yeah, no, if you go to the startengine.com/cryptid, which I'm sure you could put a link somewhere, but if you go to startengine.com/cryptid, you can see our campaign, and you can see what it is we're trying to do from an investment standpoint, from a money raising standpoint.
You've made almost $5,000 so far.
We have, yeah. So far,
nice.
we're up to about that, and we have plans kind of for everything. And one of the things that like one of the things we talked about earlier that we found was very important was to figure out the distribution method that we're going to do, which becomes much more important now that we're dealing with investments versus donations.
Right.
Because we have to now we're a business. Like, we had to file with the SEC, and we had to actually create everything financially to make it legitimate, just like a startup business. Like, we are a 100% fully launched startup company. So one of the things we had to do was figure out, well, how are we going to make the money in the back end so that we can tell our investors, well, this is what we want to do. And so we have a plan outlined as to exactly how we're going to bring sales agents and distribution reps on before we start filming, so that the concept being, before we even start filming anything, we will already have a plan in place to where and how we're going to sell it. So the idea being, we're not in the scenario that we're always in.
Yeah, no,
where we're filming it and we're like, well, what's going to happen
you've
when
learned.
It's done?
You've learned.
Yeah, and that's what we've been focusing on the last couple of years, is to make sure that before we start frame one, we have a solid plan for making the money back on the other end.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. Cool, man. Yeah. All right. I mean, I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I can't think of anything. We've covered a lot of topics.
I mean, we've been chatting for maybe an hour and a half or so.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, cool. Appreciate it, man.
No, thank you. I appreciate this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.